If women supplemented 250 micrograms a day of selenium, it would effectively in one generation reduce the occurrence of breast cancer by 88.6%. So tell me why doctors aren't pushing selenium.
Do you feel as if COVID-19 we're past this COVID nightmare? Or do you think that this is just the beginning?
I think, okay, so I need to give a little background on this. Not that education means everything, but I mean, it helps that I know a few things. I am an RN. I spent like 6 years in school. I'm also a nutritionist and a CPT, a certified personal trainer. The most success anybody I've ever dealt with, whether it be through personal training and nutrition, are those ones, even if they're chronically ill and have things like diabetes, are always the ones that change the lifestyle factor. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is that the healthier you are as a person, the less susceptible you are. And, you know, another thing that people aren't looking into here, and there's plenty of documented research for this, your immune system can't formulate T cells, T lymphocytes, macrophages, neutrophils, leukocytes. These are all white blood cells that are involved in practical immune responses. When I say practical, I mean you see a lot of these people with overactive immune systems, and essentially what that is autoimmune disorders. You know, you see a lot of this stuff, and the medical models for the past 50 years been all about fighting the germ. Most people don't understand. We have 600 trillion viruses that live in symbiosis in our body, and 60 million different kinds of bacteria. We're more viral and bacterial than we are our own DNA. We're not that special. We finished sequencing the genome mid-2000s. Turns out we have the same amount of genes as an earthworm. We're not that important, and I think people are missing the point. What makes us human and makes our immune system so great are our exposures to these viruses and pathogens that allow us to use different parts of our immune system effectively.
Pretty much what you're saying is the more you expose yourself to any type of sickness, the stronger your immunity gets.
I mean, I'm not saying expose yourself to COVID-19. What I'm really trying to say here is that your life, your immune system, your immunity depends on you being exposed to viruses and pathogens. You can't have a functional immune system if you're isolating yourself in your house. That is not what the science suggests makes a healthy person or immune system. As of the past 10 years, there is definitive research to show the antithesis of that.
If we're going ahead and possibly exposing ourselves to this virus, what are some things we can do to safeguard our body and make it stronger?
You have to look at it this way. The oldest living person lived till about 140 and smoked a lot of tobacco. So that begs the question to be answered. Why are there people who die of lung cancer or certain cancers that smoke a pack a day and only live till 50? Because it's not a problem of the cigarette. It's a problem of the immune system. In lieu of a better term, you can use the word allergy or sensitivity. There are certain things in our environment each and every person react to differently. The up and coming field right now is epigenetics. Again, epigenetics states that there's a control above every gene in our body that either turns it on or off. For example, the BRAC1 and 2, BRAC1 and 2 genes are oncological genes that code for cancer. So if these things are turned on, women get breast cancer, but if they're turned off, they don't have them. So the question is, what turns them on and off? And this is the study of epigenetics. It's the control above the gene. I think the most important thing to realize here is you are more a pioneer and more in control of your destiny than you think you are. But you need to figure out your sensitivities, the things that are causing you problems. The best way to do that, you can see what polymorphisms you have in your genes.
So what you're saying is, before we go out and start eating everything that we think is going to be really good for us, we need to figure out what it is that we can't put into our bodies.
Exactly. So 2 clear-cut examples of this. Well, let's say you get a gene test done and it shows you have a polymorphism in your MTHFR gene, which is a reductase gene that allows you to take folic acid and convert it to methylfolate so your body can actually use it, which is a B vitamin. Italian people, 50% of the time, they have polymorphism where they can't use this gene properly. They're either heterozygous or homozygous. Now what that means is they take in the folate from fortified foods and they have horrible reactions. They have all these autoimmune diseases. I'm not saying that's the cause of every autoimmune disease. I'm saying it needs to be investigated investigated, because a lot of the time when these people take these fortified breads and gluten out, they think they're actually getting better from doing a gluten-free diet, when effectively they're actually reducing the amount of folic acid. They remove that. They have the most natural form of folate through leafy greens. Now, all of a sudden, all of their problems get better. Now, there are people who don't even have that. So what I'm saying is there are different gene mutations. Another one is the cholesterol. You have an ApoE4 mutation in your ApoE gene, which disallows people who have this genetic defect to not break down cholesterol, so it builds up in the blood. In most studies now, we understand that people with the ApoE4 gene can't break down and utilize cholesterol the same way, so they're better suited on a Mediterranean diet. But usually cholesterol, for most people, it doesn't cause an increase of atherosclerotic plaque. The data is definitive now, and why doctors are still prescribing cholesterol lowering medications is beyond me. You start lowering your cholesterol, meta-analysis show you're at a 30% increased risk of certain cancers like colon cancer, Barrett's esophagus, and there's too many to name. The answer to your question is there's not a one-size-fits-all thing, and the bacteria here, they're not our enemy. We need to have a symbiotic relationship with them. You need to build your immune system, because your immune system is more of these viruses and bacteria than your own DNA. We have the same amount of genes as an earthworm. We know that because we sequenced the genome. It's not the genes that make us who we are, it's how they express themselves. So I suggest that everybody out here, you go and look into your genes and see what polymorphisms you have and adapt your lifestyle to that. And quite often, if you find a good functional practitioner, these people will be able to work with you and figure these problems out that usually the medical system can't. In America, we're really good at surgery, but that's it. We're not good at anything else. We have the highest infant mortality per capita. I wrote a 20-page thesis on this. Per capita, we spend more on healthcare than any other civilized nation on the face of the planet. We literally rank second to last in outcome. We're not good at it. We give drugs to manage people's diseases. It doesn't work. It does not work. And that's the biggest problem with the medical system. They don't want to look at epigenetics. We're starting to understand these things. And, I can tell you personally, it's like, when you work, you're a nurse, you work with these patients, you give them the meds, you see what happens. After a while, you pick up on it. You're like, Jesus, this is not working for these people. Not everybody is going to come out there like me and say it. We have licenses we're trying to protect. All it takes is for one wrong thing to be seen by one wrong person, and that's it. But truthfully, I don't care. I could care less. I make a lot of money doing a lot of different things. I'm not dependent on my nursing career, but that's not it for me. I have a lot more talents. I have a lot more education. I'm just nursing. I'm in nutrition. I'm also a CPT. A lot of the foods are good. I mean, you want to try to get in USDA if you live in the United States. The USDA regulates USDA organic food. Honestly, it's not anywhere near as good as everybody makes it out to be. What I'm saying is it's the best we have right now, and it's not even that great. These foods that are USDA organic, at least they don't contain glyphosate, which is an organophosphate. It's an antibiotic, a mineral chelator. We now know that microdosing antibiotics over a lifetime, it causes cancer. This is what the meta-analysis and research now shows. So if you're eating non-organic food that's sprayed with glyphosate, you will effectively increase your risk of cancer in almost every category by 20%. So the biggest bang for your buck is trying to eat organic food. You can't wash it off. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it's an education to even learn how to find organic food. It can't just say organic. It has to have a seal on it. It needs to have that circle, the half circle that's black and white or green and white that says USDA, and then on the bottom organic. It can't literally just say organic on the package. Such deceptive marketing practices out there. If somebody's sick and really wants to turn their life around, a juicer that squishes the juice, separates the fiber. You can get your fiber from other sources. It creates a juice specifically that's energized from whole plants, right? So good things to heal your gut are going to be cucumber juice, things with lemon in them, things with carrots because of the beta carotene, vitamin A, and the carotenoids in them. Things that are very good like kale, which are very nutrient dense. Anything that's a perennial vegetable that concentrates vitamins and minerals are very important. I think the biggest thing most people don't understand is your vitamins don't work, people. They don't work. And let me tell you why. You're wasting your time taking them until you fix this part. Your vitamins can't work if you don't have the digestive enzymes to start breaking down the food. Can't be activated without the correct minerals. Most people are mineral deficient. For example, magnesium. According to the CDC, 60% of people worldwide are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is responsible in over 300 metabolic processes that govern things like your heart working properly, your thyroid. Here's the problem. Doctors are putting everybody on PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, you know, the small purple pill. They can't, you need to have an acidic stomach to break down this stuff. So what I'm trying to say at a baseline, wary of organic foods, wary of stuff that reduces your stomach acid. So you want to eat red bell peppers, have an unbelievable amount of vitamin C. It will heal your gut. It's very probiotic. Things like kale, things like cucumbers. You need to integrate this into your diet on a daily basis. Liver is the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. Organ meats are the best way to go. They have almost 50 to 75% of the RDA of almost every one of your B vitamins, has about 17 to 20 grams of iron in it. Protein, cholesterol. People need cholesterol by weight. Your brain is made of 75% fats, cholesterol. A bodybuilder, they go to the gym. They're not dumb. They know that once they get out, they need to replenish the protein they've broken down. The brain doesn't work any differently, except for your brain's on all the time. It never shuts off. Its fuel is glucose and cholesterol. It's made of cholesterol. If you're using it every day and you're not replacing it like a bodybuilder would with the thing it's breaking down, cholesterol, you have brain atrophy. You have these things like amyloid plaques that happen, that your body is more susceptible to. So those are the kind of foods, whole foods, you should be eating. This is very controversial. I do not advocate for veganism or vegetarianism. After a while, it's technically abuse to your body because you can't produce norepinephrine, serotonin, or dopamine without proteins. Utilize things like phenylalanine properly to be able to produce neurotransmitters. After a while, your body can't do that without meat. Might be 10 years, might be 15 years. People who are vegetarians, the research is now starting to come out that these people are becoming very sick. I mean, you can fight it all you want, but you have to be able to read the research studies, and you see now that this stuff maybe in the short term is good. Science is changing all the time. What I'm saying could be changeable, but the current research shows it's no good for you.
What you're saying is there's no way to replicate the actual effect of eating meat.
No, it's not possible. Essentially, what you break down from the meat are the proteins into amino acids. There's plenty of essential amino acids that you cannot survive without. Those amino acids are building blocks to things like serotonin and dopamine. And the other thing is, if your stomach is not straightened out, you're not having good stomach acid and good bowel function. 90% of your serotonin, we now know, is produced in your gut. You can't be a happy person if you don't straighten your gut out. You can't be a happy person after a while if you're not eating meat. I guess what I'm trying to say is we live in a world that's already extremely deficient because we've destroyed the soil. Food is only as good as the soil. And that's another reason people cry, oh, organic stuff is great. It's good, it's the best we have, but it's really shit. Your plants are only as good and your meat is only as good as what it can take out of the soil. And because of our horrible farming practices, we've ruined that. You know, we're not getting selenium, we're not getting boron. We now know. Go right on the CDC website. Type in the search on the right upper hand corner, selenium and breast cancer. If women supplemented 250 micrograms a day of selenium, it would effectively in one generation reduce the occurrence of breast cancer by 88.6%. So tell me why doctors aren't pushing selenium. It's a mineral. It's like magnesium. The problem is we don't find this in the soil. There's not a lot of good stuff left in the soil. So why in God's name would you ever limit your diet? You need to get as many minerals, vitamins, proteins, and amino acids as you can right now. The research is now starting to come out to show that when we restrict our diets in certain ways, especially veganism and vegetarianism, it's not necessarily the healthiest thing to do.
The best thing you can possibly eat is stuff with the least amount of ingredients, and those are the most easily digestible, best for your gut to break down and kind of process.
That's actually a really good question. So if you're buying a packaged or processed food, the least ingredients, the better. And it's easier to lose weight that way because your body loves to store toxins in your greater omentum. I implore everybody to go look up an anatomical diagram of the human body, the front part of it. The greater omentum is essentially your stomach and your love handles. And the greater omentum is an accumulation of fat cells. And we now know fat is an endocrine organ and it balances your hunger. And fat also stores toxins when your body can't get rid of them as fast. So I guess what I'm trying to say, when we eat foods which have a lot of ingredients in them, anything more than 3 to 4 ingredients, most of the time your body can't process those. It perceives them as toxins. It stores them in your fat cells, and what your fat cells do is dilute that even more with water. So effectively your stomach and your love handles grow the higher amount of ingredients that your body has to process because it can't get rid of them as fast. Now, some people are better at that than others. Remember how I talked earlier about people have different polymorphisms and different genes genes that express themselves differently. It's not the genes that make us important. We have the same amount of genes as an earthworm. It's how they express themselves. Some people's genes with fat like to store a lot of water and toxins. You need to understand that when you're eating glyphosate, non-organic food, that is a toxin to the body. It's also a mineral chelator. You need to reduce the amount of ingredients.
So as for following some sort of guideline on this journey of life with your health, what's going to give you the best base? What do you want to go by?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, number one, don't use plastic bottles. I'm only doing this because I'm keeping some distilled water in here right now. People need to have a more open mind. If you feel like the medical system's failed you and you have chronic diseases that are not being reversed, if you have type 2 diabetes and somebody's telling you this is going to be with you for the rest of your life, fire them. If your doctor is telling you these things, if your nurse practitioner is telling you these things, get with a functional medical practitioner, have your genes explored. Again, it's $100 test. It'll tell you certain sensitivities you have and you can change simply the foods you eat. Your life can completely change. You need to eat whole foods. People need to get out of this idea that grains are good for you. They're not. They're terrible for you. Whole grains are not the same thing we had 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. They've been so modified. They now have 14 different chromosomes as opposed to the 4 they used to have. We can't process this stuff. Stay away from grains, and you need to have a minimalist diet if you can. Minimal ingredients. Just remember, the next time you pick up that package, if you're seeing an ingredient list that's like the size of a Charles Dickens novel, no. It doesn't matter if it's diet or not. There's a very good chance you're not going to lose weight from that, or as much as you could. You need to drink more water. You need to eat more vegetables. It sounds so simple, but Jesus Christ. You know, if you just take a step back and be honest with yourself for a second, you're not doing these simple things, and that's why it's not getting better for you. You need to heal your gut. You need to eat whole foods. You need to start making your own foods. You need to understand that protein isn't a bad thing.
Are there any good supplements out there that could help heal your gut? Because I know a lot of people have that problem, stomach problems.
You know what works really good? Triphala, actually. This thing's been around for tens of thousands of years. There is so much documented research on this thing. If you're having a problem with leaky gut and you really want to try something, listen, you got to do all these things. Let's be honest. I think what gets a lot of people on the map is like you give them something and they're like, oh my God, this really worked for me. I feel better. And that kind of gets them in the door. Triphala, tri means 3, phala means fruit. What it is, it's an extract of 3 fruits. There is a plethora of information on the medical journals like JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, PubMed, thousands and thousands of articles to show how this is antimicrobial. It's it being an adaptogen, meaning it helps the proliferation, the growth of good bacteria and the reduction of bad bacteria in your stomach. It's a pill you can take or a powder. Not only is it an adaptogen, but it's antiviral for bad viruses, really bad ones. Remember, we need to have that symbiotic environment. We need to get out of this mindset that viruses and bacteria are bad. No, that's literally the reason we're alive.
I noticed that when I started taking Triphala, it wasn't working for me at first. And then we pointed out the fact that I was taking the hard pills, and you explained to me that they were less effective. The pills that you went ahead and had me get next were capsules full of powder. You explained to me that these would be 60% more effective. And what do you have to look out for?
So when you get a hardened pill of anything, whether it be vitamin D or any vitamin, people need to get off the notion simply because you're taking a vitamin or something or a pill, it's even a vitamin, that it's good for you. It's not. Most of these vitamins and minerals are terrible. You literally have to have a full education to understand which vitamins and which form of it you need to take, because the deceptive practices out there and the marketing on these things are terrible. It's horrible. What I'm trying to say is when you get a hardened pill like you got, after looking at that bottle, it had like 5 preservatives in it. And then we got you an organic form of it, which had 2 ingredients. I think it was a cellulose vegetable capsule. The only other ingredient in that was the organic Triphala, and that all points back to what I've been saying. The less stuff that you take in that your body has to process, the more effectively it can heal other things. I've been in and out of Tufts Medical Center. I've been in and out of Beth Israel. I've been in and out of the highest priority hospitals. I mean, I've been and worked in the mecca of sciences. These people have the sickest people in the world.
What you really want to look out for is make sure it's organic. A lot of these hard pills aren't good compared to the capsules. Just make sure it doesn't have a plethora of ingredients and preservatives in what you're taking.
Exactly. So the minimalist approach is the best. My last message to everybody out there is you guys can do whatever you want, believe what you want. I implore you to go on PubMed, NCBI, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, the Journal of Epidemiology. You can find all of this information. You go to school, you're only taught specific things. I don't know any of the stuff that I know, that I just talked about, because I learned it in school. Actually, I learned the complete antithesis of what I am spewing to you. It's just craziness. It's amazing to me that everything that I learned in school, the exact opposite had worked a lot better for me. And I think people need to understand they need to the best they can, educate themselves and try to understand their body and be their own best doctor. Now, if you have an acute issue and you have issues, you need to go seek medical help. There's no question about that. Not everybody is as fortunate like somebody like me or somebody like an MD or an NP to be able to know when something really bad's going on. That's the only thing I'd argue that I really learned that's really applicable to me. You know, I do a lot of consulting. I've had hundreds and hundreds of clients, nutritional clients. I've changed their lives around, completely reversed type 2 diabetes. Just it's simple diet stuff. Otherwise, these people are on insulin for the rest of their lives. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's hope for you, because all the stuff I am saying right now is nothing I learned in school. You can learn this stuff. You need to go in the medical journal. There is definitive information showing that everything I am saying is true. Go find it.